Hi, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Worth. Boy, do I have a treat for you in our session today. Not only do I have one guest, I have two guests. I have two co-authors of Phoenix Duffy and Sara Ann Noah. They have created this book that is so delicious. It is called The Grass is Always Greenest Under Our Own Feet. And they were both born and raised in southeastern Michigan. And back in 2016, they met in an East Bay in the California Bay Area at a spiritual center in Alameda called the Home of Truth. And they entertained and they really created this really blossoming friendship that became inspired them to really pull together and write this book of tale of hope. And I'm really excited to be able to share it with you as we explore this really beautiful meaning around the book. I mean, it's just gorgeous too. I mean, physically, it's gorgeous. For those on YouTube, you'll be able to see it if you want to. But welcome, ladies. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. You know, when I first when I ordered the book, The Grass is Always Greener, the one thing I really couldn't wait to dive into was that with all of my own spiritual journey, is that it seems like so many of the concepts that I've learned about were intertwined in the story. So many powerful messages. And then the beautiful, artwork that was done by Carrie
Bargo.
Bargo. And I mean, it just illustrates the words like, a picture, can say so much. And so welcome. So I want to hear more about what was the intent behind this book and how did it, really birth through you guys and come together? And I just would love to hear that.
Great. Phoenix, do you want to start?
Sure. Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
Just making sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was really ironic because we were having a lot of magical experiences while we're living in California. And one of the things that we realized was that there were so many serendipitous and synchronistic events that happened to us that we kind of wanted to bring it into a book. But the first thing that I think we thought about was we noticed that in our language and the way that people speak, there was some old paradigm type phrases that weren't very high vibrational. And so like sayings like, there's more than one way to skin a cat or whatever, which is just horrible. It's just horrible to say. So we started inventing a better way to say things, to replace these lower vibrational words and word phrases. And that's kind of how it started. And then as we started to, come up with let's create a story around all these idioms and phrases that are from the old, the olden days. Our ancestors have used them for years, like speak of the devil. When you say someone walked in the room, it's like, so why don't you say speak of the angel? Like, why are we talking about the devil? That should not even be in the conversation. So Sara, you probably have more to say about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it really, I think the book was born from exactly what Phoenix talked about. And also from the joy and magical experiences that she and I had. And we became housemates and we just had so much fun. And sometimes we would just be doubled over in laughter, just this whimsical joy, this we would just kind of get into these really joyful, happy places. Like when we went to Kirtan together, that's such a high vibrating event to really get physiologically into the high gamma or theta states. And we wanted to have something that would be really a visual representation of what it feels like. And like you mentioned, Debbie, these are some of my favorite things like Reiki, plant medicine. That's one of the passions that Phoenix and I shared as housemates. It would be like waking up and we would make these special chocolate cacao brownies that were like almost raw, vegan, gluten-free, and just really it was like an old saying of like getting high on life. And we just had some magical experiences too, and we kind of wove them into the book. And my personal life, Reiki has been such an important, and crystal healing and plant medicine, herbal healings have been such an important part of my spiritual journey. And we allude to some of the things in there too, like shamanistic healing and Kundalini yoga. That's more in the artwork, but we just kind of threw everything in there that we loved and that was uplifting to our souls and hearts.
Yeah. I think we all have that in common, right? The whole discovery of Reiki and how it really can shift your awareness of the energy, our auras, our vibes, and what that really means. So say somebody is new to spirituality or walking their own journey, right? What if this is the first time they've tuned in and they're like, well, how would you explain what that feels like? I know we had talked earlier about having lived in like the Midwest, living in like Colorado and living in California, the Bay Area. How would you explain that, like that vibrational change? What's some way that you could possibly try to articulate that? Like what would that feel like to somebody?
I can talk about that a little bit because I grew up in the Midwest in Michigan. And there's just this I had a connection to nature growing up because I grew up on a couple acres that my great grandparents used to farm. And just there's an earthiness and a magical in the trees, and just really communing with nature in a certain way. And then because of my yoga background, I think of Colorado like Shiva energy. Like it's just this, like, I imagine Shiva with the dreadlocks. Like it's just like so grounded and so kind of fiery. And there's different kind of vortexes of energy that are there. And then in California, and I lived for a short spell in Oregon as well. The California energy in Phoenix had arrived in California a short bit before me. It was like, wow, it was so energetic, like, because we found out there's 10,000 earthquakes every year in California.
Yeah.
And even the ones you don't witness or feel, and just kind of riding the waves. I would tell people it's like surfing, but Phoenix and I used to say something like, there's gold in the hills and magic in the air. And there was just a different way of kind of feeling like intention and vibratory. But I think the biggest thing, if somebody was new to any kind of energy form, is feeling that that namaste experience of the divine energy within me sees and recognizes the divine energy within someone else, another being, another person, another place, and just practicing that, getting aligned, feeling the alignment through nature is my favorite way. But also through plant medicine. When I moved to California, I had to, because it was so energetic, I couldn't handle new moon. Like I spontaneously got this download about, I have to do cacao ceremony every new moon. And it was by myself, and I was just like self-initiated. But sometimes spirit takes care of us in ways if we ask for help from our angels, guides, guardians.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. Yeah. Having grown up in the Bay Area, lived there. Well, I've lived other places, but spent a majority of my adulthood in the Bay Area. And I thought the opposite, right? Like I thought everybody just lived and talked about different things, though my collective friends when I was younger did not. I went seeking it and it was everywhere, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go try drumming. Oh, I'm going to go to try a sweat lodge. Oh, I'm going to go learn about oils. Oh, there's 15 ways to do yoga. Let me go find which one I want to go try out, right? Like there was just so much. It wasn't until I moved away that I realized, like, oh, you guys don't have what? Like, why is this so hard to find? Yeah. It's actually what kind of led also to the podcast, so that, that people could build community and they could meet people who had different thoughts than maybe what's actually available in their immediate area, and then realize that there's so much out there, part of it. So tell me more too about, so on this journey for the book to come through you, You guys are having
Mhm.
these whimsical joy moments. Oh, gosh, we could all use some
Mhm.
whimsical joy, right? We need more of that in
Yeah.
life.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd just
one of
like to
them
say,
was Phoenix. Do you want to? Yeah.
what one?
Yeah, go
What do
ahead.
you
I was
have?
going to say, tell the story about the rose garden.
Oh, yeah, the rose garden. Well, it just before I say that, I just want to mention that the book is a story. It's a metaphysical story. So it's not like, a lot of people write books and it's about like, Reiki, or it's about, spiritual awakening. And our book is about that, but it's told in a story, which is very unique in the sense that you can still glean a lot of spiritual opening from just reading this. It seems like just a regular, story, but it has so many embedded messages in it, in the wording and how we have written it. And so one of the things, getting back to your question, now, was you asked what kind of made us want to get on this journey and get the story out. Well, we noticed people were not speaking in a high vibration at times. Even certain metaphysical speakers, or I don't want to name certain names, but people that are motivational speakers, they would say, well, let's just go kill two birds with one stone. And I'm thinking, this is gross, and Sarah's like, oh yeah. She's like, I already gave that up a long time ago, because she was a vegan, and she was like, you can't have harm to animals. And it's, and it's quite true. It's like, there's so many things around violence against animals, but really it isn't just that. It's also like with the way that people talk to each other. And so we decided to write the opposite of any phrase that was negative or derogatory towards women, society, anything that would hurt or be violent. And we decided, well, let's do a story around all these idioms and these words that are a lower vibration and bring them to a higher vibration, and then write the story. And then one day we were just sitting there talking, and we're like, we're kind of over this 3D old energy, old earth. We just want to live in the high vibe. How can we do this? Well, let's make a story about people living in the new paradigm that have never experienced the old paradigm. And then there's some people that have lived in the old paradigm, they left the old paradigm, and they're living in the new paradigm with the people. So there's like an integration going on there. And so that's how the main characters, Serendipity and Synchronicity and Freedom, the pet pig, is living with them. And they're living with Aunt Bonita, who used to live in the old paradigm, but she left, but her husband still lives in the old paradigm. So the old paradigm is called, maybe I'm going into this too much. Is it all right?
No.
So the old paradigm is Lost Valley. And the paradigm that Serendipity, Synchronicity, and Aunt Bonita live in is Starseed. So think about Starseed. It's like the highest vibration you can get anywhere on earth is the Starseed chakra, right? And so they decide to take a call to go back to the old paradigm to like help the people there that are just drowning in, dirty energy, dirty water, dirty air. The people are depressed. They hate each other. There's all these like evil things going on, and they need the shift or they're just going to go to demise, right?
Mhm.
So the story just takes on this whole, like, they go back to the old paradigm, and it's kind of scary because, the kids, well, the teenagers, Serendipity and Synchronicity, have never been around this vibration. They have never, seen what fear or illness is, or evil or greed or anything like that. So they start handling all these social justice issues from a higher perspective, with the way they talk, with their words, with Reiki, with crystals, with roses, and all this kind of these symbology is throughout the entire book. And Sarah and I just felt like we would want to live there right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because,
Yes,
oh, Karen,
for sure.
you're there, Sarah. Good.
Yeah.
So did I answer the question, or did I go off on a whim?
No, I think it really gives a really good, like, high level outline of how your book is really, it's not about, there is a lot of books about modalities or people's story through their own awakening, and which are all beautiful, right, in their own sense. But this is really, I really saw it as like a hand-on way to be able to even reach different generations, and to be able to make it in terms that you don't have to understand it, everything that's being said, but you can pick up that it's uplifting and it's for everybody's higher purpose. And, maybe somebody doesn't have any experience with plants or crystals, or even though we're all surrounded by them, maybe they're not used to, or maybe they're just not comfortable with it yet, right? Because they're living in a more fear-based environment. So I think it really translates, to multi generations. And though, like, I don't want to be in Lost Valley.
No.
Yeah, well, just so you understand this, at the end, towards the end of the book, not the very end, because we have a little surprise at the end, but in the sort of the right before the clincher, the city actually renames the city from Lost Valley to Love Valley. And we thought of this, in like, once the townspeople all just, it's like the 101 monkey syndrome or whatever. When it gets to the 100th monkey or the 101, then everybody switches. So as soon as a percentage of the population's vibration shifts and like, yeah, we deserve better. Then all of a sudden they are like, let's rename, let's be different. Well, the strange thing was, we wrote this book when we were living in Alameda, California in like 2018, I guess, right, Sarah? And then it was like, I stayed in Alameda. I didn't go back. I didn't leave. Sarah left in like 2018, almost 2019. And I didn't leave till like the end of 2020. And the thing is, while I was in Alameda, there was a school that was named after the hate, right? From hate Nashville, from San Francisco. And all the kids complained, and the parents said they don't want to go to a school called hate. They said they can't take this, that it's called hate, even though it's not spelled the same. And so they had a huge like election voting thing, and they changed the name at the school from hate to love. So now there's Love Elementary School in Alameda. And this is like a year or so after we had already written the book, and I go, oh, it's already happening. Oh my gosh, our book is happening. Like, it's like we would write it and then something would happen and we would see it happen in society. So it was almost like we're riding the wave of the consciousness shifting, maybe not everywhere, but in certain little sections of the country or the world, Yeah. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, just like Debbie mentioned, when she grew up in California, it was kind of easy to find or just to see the different modalities and magical earth-based elements and the healing that can happen. But growing up in the Midwest, like, I was not exposed to that. And that was part of my spiritual journey too, was just to find those ways. And now I can look back and think like, oh, well, the way I was introduced to Reiki or shamanistic healing was quite serendipitous, but that feeling that we're always being taken care of, that our guides, guardians, angels, ancestors, loved ones are kind of have our best interest at heart. But there also, I think in the book, there's like, I grew up with a little bit of a sadness, maybe more than a little, from feeling like, oh, I was the black sheep. I didn't fit in. This wasn't really accepted by society. But now that I'm older, and it's like, oh, all bets are off. It's like, it's a different time. The paradigm shift really does feel, it's way different than I expected. Like 11, I was thinking about 11, 11, 11, or 12, 12, 12, since we just had the 222.
2.
Yeah. And I was thinking, what I imagine is happening now, I understand it, but it still feels energetically different. But yeah, the book is supposed to be sort of a way to show it in a visual form so that people have some hope of like, oh yeah, this is a hopeful story. It isn't, doesn't have to be sad, even when we do witness. There's time for grief. And there's also, I just want to mention really quickly, there's no judgment, and because spiritual bypassing is a real thing. But the book isn't intended to be anything like didactic or judgmental or PC. It's really just a representation from our lived experience to say, like, it does feel better to be in that field of infinite possibilities, or what I call 5D. it just feels, my heart feels like at home, and I'm in coherence. I'm in homeostasis, like if I were an animal, frolicking in nature. I am an animal, yeah. So there's that element to it.
Okay, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, and I want to, I'll show my age here, because I'm 55. And when I grew up in the 70s, I mean, people didn't have, where I grew up in the East San Jose, the Lower Bay Area. This way of being wasn't everywhere either, too, right? Like you could go to Santa Cruz, it was up in Berkeley, the hippies, right? And my parents were definitely not hippies, but we went to church and we had a standard family, and luckily no abuse or any of that type of stuff. But around us was a lot of working class people. And so a lot of people went to church, more traditional church. And so it wasn't until I started to venture out too that I realized, like through meetups and finding out that there were different ways, like they started having more non-denominational churches and just different ways were just, I think we were introduced to it. The scene from Santa Cruz. I worked in Santa Cruz County. So that really prompted a really like, wow, like I'd never heard of vegan food or,
Yeah.
even there. So even, but now that it has just grown, it's become part of the Bay Area, like you can easily find anything you want now, but how that grew. So I also wanted to touch on too, you had mentioned the 101 monkey. So I wanted to clarify, anybody who's listened to that, is it's an actual, the 101 monkey is actually a book that's on, that I use when I do change management. And it has to do with like people following what is normal. And it was a study done on a remote island that had to do with these monkeys were getting sick, and there was something that they were eating, and because they weren't washing their food, and there was a few monkeys that would wash their food before they ate it. And so they studied the monkeys to how could that change, the behaviors change. And it wasn't until they hit the 101th monkey that that this health concern that they had, and it was really ending, as well as where it became the more normal that they started to wash their food. And so just so that anybody who's like, what's 101 monkey? Not that we're monkeys, but just to understand, it's actually based upon some science too that was done on what it takes for the collective to start changing what's more normal. And I think this beautifully represents, the words, right? How powerful our words are, these old expressions. And yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find out too, now, as we went through the book, I wanted to see what was your favorite part of writing the book. And you had a beautiful story that you wanted to share with us about roses. And so I would love for the audience to be able to hear that experience. I just think it's so magical to hear.
Sarah, too.
Oh, okay. I'll start the story. Phoenix and I, it was a Sunday afternoon, and she's like, we have to go to the Oakland Rose Garden. We just have to go today. And I was like, kind of not feeling it. I'm like, and she kind of dragged me out of the house, and we got there, and it's a beautiful place, but the roses weren't in bloom. It was a little, maybe March or before, the flowers start blooming. And a young man about the age 25 walks out of the forest holding magnolia blossoms, and he presents them to Phoenix and I, and he starts telling us a prayer about Jesus and singing to us in like an ancient light language, which I imagined was Lemurian. And it was a beautiful moment. I have pictures of me like hugging a redwood tree, or one of those, maybe it wasn't redwood, but it was one of those big trees that they have there. And it's just this beautiful feeling of when things align, we get real human interaction, we meet the people we need to meet to infuse us, to keep us feeling that we're not alone, because no one is supposed to go through this life journey alone. Sometimes there was people say have this saying like find your tribe. That's been used in a metaphysical way for many years, but find the people who are vibing where you're vibing so that it feels encouraging to them and encouraging to us as well. Yeah.
What a beautiful experience.
May I add to it?
Please.
Yes, please.
So yes, he was giving us these poems about Jesus. And, as he's talking, I was very engaged and Sara was very engaged. And then I just started looking around and there's like these wild turkeys that started surrounding us and squirrels and other birds. And they were like gathering to hear. And I was like, wow, I feel like we're in the Bible. I know what's going on. This is awesome. Yeah. And then we were talking to him about, I think we talked to him about our book. We were talking to him about what we were doing or something to that level. I don't know if we had already started the book at that point or and so then we were talking about the new earth and we said, well, we know that this feels like we're in the new earth. And he looked right in our eyes and put his hands. Now this is the thing, this is a stranger. Okay. And, there's a lot of homeless people in Oakland. So, I mean, normally you would think this is some weirdo, he wasn't, we just knew. Even though he looked different or a little disheveled, we were like, okay. He put his hands on our hearts, not like in a weird way or anything, just and he looked into our eyes and he said, new earth is right now. It's now, right now. And literally Sara and I just like kind of jolted back. And then he was kind of like gone after that, I mean, we did end up connecting with him on Facebook and he's a really nice, he does murals all over the world, beautiful Lemurian, like beautiful painting. Crystal. And Sara even got one of his paintings. But the point is we walked away from the rose garden and we're looking at each other and I'm like, my heart feels different. And she goes, mine does too. And we were like, it exploded with like love or something. We're like, who was that guy? We literally like, who was that guy? It was nuts, but it was great. But these are like a lot of these experiences that we would just have. And we'd like, what is happening with the vibration here? Or like what, it's almost like we had a mission to go there for a certain amount of time to study. And our papers and our orders were to write this high vibrational book that was a whimsical story that people would be drawn in with. And it's two superheroes that go in and they're creating all these shifts in consciousness in people, right? But it's like our own personal experiences were like, we were really like elevated, I think, from these experiences. And we would go to Mount Tamalpais. I mean, I'd wake up feeling totally crappy in the day and Sarah's like, we're going to Mount Tam today. And I'm like, okay. And we go up there and I would feel like so amazing. And I'm like, what is this energy? And talk about earthquakes. I loved the earthquakes if they weren't scary. If I felt an earthquake, I literally would be like, oh yes. And I'd be like pulling the energy in, like receiving Mother Earth's energy, letting us know that, hey, I'm here, connect with me. And that's what I feel like she shakes us for when you're out there. It's just this shake, like, remember, I'm here. I'm the boss, Anyways, that's just my take on that, but got a little carried away.
Oh, well, I never really thought about earthquakes that way growing up there. We just got so used to like, you always have like a hanging plant or something that's free so that if you start feeling a little like wobbly, you can look up, okay, it was an earthquake, right? All the small ones that would just happen. And then of course the big ones that I've experienced, growing up there.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that it isn't dangerous. I just want to put that as a disclaimer. Yeah. It's dangerous. And Sara and I we did go through a couple not so small ones there. And in the one time that it was really, really big, we happened to be way up in like Grass Valley and we were on a mission for energetic whatever, and like the bay had this huge earthquake and people were freaking out. We're like, we don't know what you're talking about. We're like so far away. And we're like, wow, we were kind of protected from that one. So
yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Like, don't forget I'm here, connect with me. What a way to think about, I think, any of our natural things that are happening, especially at the volume that what they're happening now across, the US or really the world, right? With all the global warming stuff and our environment is talking back to us, no, don't forget I'm here. So that's a really beautiful way of thinking about it. Thank you.
Well, just one little thing on that. So I am an energy healer, and I do Akashic record healing, and I do hypnosis now as well. And my company is called Three Butterflies. And one of my clients, actually, sometimes I work with a lot of indigos and crystals and rainbow children that are now in their like 20s and 30s and some in their 40s. And they all have specific gifts. And this one client of mine, she had this gift where if there was an earthquake, she would literally go into the earth and start doing like healing and like rebalancing the shifts of the tectonic plates. It's almost like she was in charge of like a huge area of LA that stopped. And then I had another client that was just like really, it was really interesting. But the earthquake would happen and I would call her and she'd be like, oh yeah, I'm on it. You know, it's already working on it. So it's just interesting how it all coordinates with like the work I was already doing and the people that I was meeting that do have these sort of special powers where they do the energy healing because they were born for it. Whereas like, I think Sara and I were like born to write this book and bring it. And we really wanted it in a movie. We want it on the big screen or on a TV near you. It's a special, you know, after school special or a limited series, whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll do a shout out if there's anybody here that's associated with Pixar, right? Like that the new movie that I fell in love with was Soul, right? About which was somebody going up and how they come to earth and how their soul is picked and the characteristics that they're giving. Like this book goes right along with that type of story that could just come to life. So maybe there's somebody there and they can reach out to, you know, Phoenix or Sara Ann or myself and we can connect because I just think that would just, it would be really powerful for, to expose, you know, newer minds to thinking and understanding how powerful their words are and how powerful our energy can be, and how we can make those choices, you know. If maybe they haven't been exposed to it, but they could be exposed to it in a very beautiful way of the story. So I want to see too, Sara, was there anything else you wanted to add to what we were just, what Phoenix and I were just saying?
One element of because the Rose Garden story is depicted in the book. We have kind of a magical moment that's depicted in our book. But the artist Kai in Phoenix talked about the story about the animals were gathering around, and it sounds like a Jesus story, like Jesus. I just thought because the book is infused with also this element of healing, about aligning with our core, our heart, and allowing that the healing is already present. We're already whole and healed. And someone told me that that's how Jesus heals, or that's how Jesus healed people in the time that he walked on earth, was that he was just living in the quantum field. He was living in that field of infinite possibilities. And so the book is, I think, intended to show, yes, the two young people, Serendipity and Synchronicity, they appear like superheroes to us because we haven't lived our whole life in that fifth dimension energy or the new earth energy, but almost like it's kind of an aspirational story too, in the sense of when we can see it and be surrounded by people who are feeling that, then that helps our nervous system, our trillions of cells in our body also align with that healing energy, what some people might call a divine blueprint, where the wholeness and we're already healed, we're already whole, just kind of can emerge.
Oh, perfectly said. Perfectly said. Would either one of you care to read that part of the story? I know here's the picture of, let's see if I can do it. I mean, of that scene. It's just so beautiful. Visual.
Sara?
Yes, I've got my glasses on, so I'm ready to read. Okay, I'm going to start about halfway down the page, and just this is the character who is our wise woman in the story, Aunt Benita, and she starts off by explaining what's happening. This rose garden was created and tended by my great grandmother, Rainbow Orion. She was a visionary and a steward of the earth. She knew the transformative healing vibrations of the rose flower even back then, said Bonita. We have all the tools to let God show us the way. Wow, my ancestors were creative and knew the truth of abundance despite living in struggle, exclaimed Serendipity. Yes, Bonita affirmed. I smell the fragrance and now I feel like I'm starting to understand. Oh my God, look, the grass is greenest under my feet now, Hope said excitedly. Yes, and when like turns to love, you are able to receive your blessings in broad daylight instead of a blessing in disguise, Hope, said Bonita. Wow, I feel like we have pierced the veil of illusion and we can feed two birds with one scone, said Ray. Look, Hope has found her alignment and I am well too. I don't even need this cane anymore. Hey everyone, I have something even more exciting to show you. There is a secret crystal cavern nearby containing healing hot springs in it. It's where I received my activation to my expanded self, said Crystal.
Oh, I got chills.
I know. I'm so excited to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get chills, just like, when people gather of the same vibrational, like how you can tell when people do like group reading or group prayer or sending that out to the world or come together in an intentional way. I could just feel like my own vibration raising as you were reading that.
Yes,
Yeah, and
thanks
it
so
brought
much
me
for letting
right
me
back.
share.
It was so awesome. I'm glad you read it so beautifully, Sarah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
It is beautiful. And I think, I don't know if the listeners are aware that the rose essential oil is the highest vibrating oil that you can receive. It's 528 hertz, I think is
Pretty high up there, between 5 and 6. I don't remember the amount, but even though I am a doTERRA distributor, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the ones when I do my energetic healing with people, I always do the rose sacred soul alignment because it's so soft and gentle and it's so high. It can help fill in the rose energy, can fill in where you've cleared out or released. And so you need to put something back in it that's positive and uplifting, that's gentle. And so the rose vibration really is so, it's my favorite, absolute favorite of all the energetic work I do. So, I could feel when you were reading the energy of the rose, the rose essential oils basically coming into this and as we were reading it. So powerful.
Awesome.
There is a deity for each, for like each essential oil that people sometimes speak with. That's a whole nother topic, but yes, I think you're right about that. She is here. Just like plant medicine, we also have the cacao joanna, which is a cross between the cacao plant and the marijuana plant. Mm-hmm. So it's the high vibrational properties that are mixed together, and this grows in Starseed, and they bring it with them on the journey back to Lost Valley to help heal people. And there's little tidbits in there. There's a lot of things with that, but at one point these canaries are in this tunnel and they look like they're dead, but they use the balm of it on the canaries and they come back to life. So it's Sarah, did you want to say anything else about the?
Oh, just that I use CBD balm for myself, and Phoenix and I were able to get, a friend of mine worked at a place that made this CBD chocolate cacao. And so we wanted to create this fictional plant that had these really magical properties, because the hemp plant, being a vegan person, the hemp protein is a really wonderful protein too, that there's this magical plant that can feed people and create pain relief and just really get a lot of chlorophyll into it and give that to people. So yeah, we wanted to just share that the magical elements of healing through plant medicine. And I mentioned before that I had been kind of spontaneously initiated into cacao ceremony just from moving to California, and I needed that guidance for my heart. And you mentioned rose, and to me, one more story I'd love to share is that Phoenix gave me this beautiful rose quartz. And so I feel like cacao and rose quartz and rose. When we went to see Amma, the hugging saint, and it was just in San Ramon, and it just was this really magical adventure. And I got some rose petal jelly. And just to say, like, wow, we got to have this hug from Amma, this embodiment of divine mother energy. And so, and one just thing, I mentioned it already, the healing of the sacred masculine and the healing of the divine feminine, that this is the time, because when we were living there in California, it was the Me Too movement, but it's that people can heal their divine feminine and sacred masculine within themselves. And that's part of the book too, is just that there isn't a right or wrong, or the patriarchy's bad, or the women are, it's just really residing in that space of the heart, that magical space that I feel like rose and cacao just really can strengthen that. And that can be the space that can heal that wound, that whether it's an Adam wound or an Eve wound, whatever people might call it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's so, thank you. I'm gonna pause there. So
you look speechless, Debbie.
I know I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what to add to that, but I'm rarely speechless either too, ladies. So so you guys have wrote this beautiful book, The Grass is Always Greenest Under Our Own Feet. And we're doing a shout out for anybody who might want to be able to help it become something that can reach a greater audience, right? In a short story, an after school special, or maybe it can be a Pixar movie. Wouldn't that be fabulous? And as we put that energy out with us collectively, the three of us out there, and any of the listeners, if they happen to have that, to come back. But so now, what do you guys do now? And how are you working with people now that the book's out? I know, Phoenix, that you mentioned you have your the work that you do with like Acoustic Records and with the Reed
Akashic,
Butterfly. Yeah. And so tell a little bit more about that. What is that? How do you describe that work, the Akash?
So I learned about it through spiritual response therapy, which is something I was introduced to in 1999. And at the time I had Lyme disease. I was really sick and I wasn't getting better. And I have a biology degree. And so I was doing everything scientific. I'd even met an herbalist who was helping me, and it was getting me somewhere. She taught me how to sort of do muscle testing and channeling, but it wasn't until I found the SRT that I noticed like a huge shift in my health, because it was just going, I think I was probably going to die if I didn't run into this modality, to tell you the truth. So in the SRT, we have a set of charts and a pendulum, and it just talks about, or we would learn about basically different aspects of the soul and how we may have chosen a certain path or a programming, or we were downloaded with a belief system when we were born, or maybe it could be from a previous life, or it could be something that happened to us at a traumatizing time in our life that isn't maybe necessarily a good belief. So it's like kind of clearing the beliefs that don't serve us anymore and getting rid of any basically having forgiveness in our hearts and our bodies and our minds from traumas and certain situations where we feel we may have been hurt. And so it's doing everything from the soul level, instead of doing it in the 3D world where you're sitting with a counselor and you're talking for hours at a time. And sometimes it does somewhat regurgitate a cycle. Whereas this, you just go right into the records, like, where is this? And I just would go into my intuitive self and I would connect with, God, source. And I would focus on, where is this in this person's timeline, their record of their soul? Did they sign up for this? Do they want to be in this anymore? You can always recreate your entire life by going from the soul level, and then in coordination with your guides, guardians, and council members, which we all have a high self committee, whether we know it or not, whether we're in contact with them or not. I also have been doing a lot of energy codes work, which Sara is also doing as well. And in the energy codes, we're taught that the high self really should be residing in your body, not outside of you. And once it's in your body, you're able to really clean your soul up quick. So if you feel like you've had a gift and you haven't been able to express it, well, what's blocking you? It's usually in the records. Something, maybe you chose it when you incarnated. Well, let's go back to where that was. Was that in utero? Was that before? And let's ask for a healing. And it's basically a directed prayer, but it's more than that. It's more than a prayer. It's like very precise. And it's almost like programming and reprogramming and asking for the program to be shifted, and using the consciousness of like everything we talk about in the book, having these high vibrational words and phrases around us, having high vibing people, having crystals, having, essential oils, keeps that vibration high. And we have more access to the soul records to clear this. And that's what I do. And, I've been trained in it, for years. I also recently just got my hypnosis certification. So I love it that if people aren't ready to go to that level and they just want to go at a moderate level, until they're ready, the hypnosis is great for that. And then I can bring in a little bit of that. So that's basically what the Akashic is to me. It does involve some past life regression if people want to do that, but I really respect where the person is. And I always ask that everything is done in an easy, relaxed manner that's safe and comfortable, healthy and positive, peaceful and loving to them. Because you don't want to do too much and you don't want to do like not enough, right? And just meet them where they are. And that's kind of what I do. And I would love to offer at least 10 people that are listening today, the first 10 people, a 15-minute free consult to chat with me if they're interested in this kind of work or receiving it or learning more about it. And you can get a hold of me at the end. I think you're going to be talking about how to get our book and our email. Our email is the grass, green grass 1111, right, Sara? It's our email. So I'm thinking, yeah. It's greengrass1111@yahoo.com. So the 1111 is obviously a numerology thing that, everyone loves that number 1111. And just a fun fact, my birthday is January 1st, and I was born at 1111 Pacific time, but I was born in the East Coast, which I always felt like I was supposed to be living in California. So talk about the difference between Michigan and California. It's definitely different, but it's, Michigan's very grounding, but like you guys have both said, it was a little bit suppressed, repressive here. So going to California was like, yes, I can finally be myself. And I'm not like a freak. In Michigan, people are like, whoa, but I'm in Ann Arbor, which is a little California. I'm in the Mecca. I'm in Ann Arbor now. So it's where, it's like almost on the same level now. That's what I'm noticing. Although I haven't been to California in about a year and a half. So, you might know more than me. You know how it changes like every 5 minutes. It's like a new thing, thing. Yep. It's that riding that wave, stay on that wave. Don't go under, So
yeah, well, thank you, Phoenix, for sharing that. Sara, what else are you up to besides this fabulous book, right? Like,
thank you. Yeah, I'm a songwriter, so that's my original creative genre was songwriting, and so I can be found at Bunny Hugger 333 at YouTube. I have a few of my songs up there. And I'm also working on, because I'm certified as a yoga teacher, I'm working on putting together some yoga packages for people, which is something that's very calming, as I meant, like the stuff I've been mentioning about the heart, just more of the yin energy and feeling relaxed and relaxing people's nervous systems if they've been overstimulated or kind of stuck in fight, flight, freeze, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, boy, it would be fabulous if you had a series on calming down our nervous systems, right? Because, I don't know how many people realize how on edge our nervous systems have been the last 2 years with all of the change as we adapt to what was versus where we are versus what's happening, and the level of uncertainty and how it impacts our nervous system.
Mm, right, right. And one of the things we talk about in the book is biohacking, in the sense of what is our physiology doing, and to calm our nervous system, to downregulate the autonomic nervous system and get into that parasympathetic state. And Phoenix and I, when we met, we had all these things in common. We had both grown up in Michigan, and we were just so excited to kind of meet as a kindred spirit. And but we both loved the same kirtan duo, Jaya Lakshmi and Ananda. And just so that is one way that I calm my nervous system, is to do sacred chanting, because the words themselves have such resonance. And when I mentioned before, we were able to meet Amma, and she whispers in people's ears. And I still don't know if she says the same thing to everybody or if she says different things to different people. But that feeling of, so one of my tips and tricks is to like put my hand on my heart and just resonate with the ah, oo, and m, which are the sacred syllables of Om, A-U, Om, Om, but individually. So that's one way, because I think for today's age, like we just need all the tips and tricks we can to, really support ourselves, support our own nervous systems, because that's how people heal, I think, is that they can be surrounded by people who have regulated their own nervous system. And then we can all just be in that state of, we need everybody else. And we need our friends and family and support systems.
Yeah. What a wonderful gift that you guys have come together and realize that about yourselves. Really. I mean, when people outside the spiritual world go, oh yeah, you just met each other, but there's really no synchronicities, there is synchronicities that are meant to happen, that you guys have the similar backgrounds. You came together, you created this beautiful space, and now you're both back, not in California, but you were together for that period of time, for that experience, and to be able to come together and create something, that talks about a town of starseeds, right? The utopian village where everyone's aura shines brightly and the grass is always green under their feet. The intuitive gift siblings answer a call for help to go on a divine mission to the town of Lost Valley, a place caught up in the trauma and drama of the old paradigm of lack and limitation. There, they explore and experience concepts foreign to them, such as fear, illness, doom, greed, racism, polluted air and water, scarcity, and a lack of compassion. Ultimately, they're able to uplift, heal, transform, and shift the lower vibration of the townspeople into unconditional love consciousness before it's too late. I mean, it's such a beautiful story. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's I am so glad that you guys were able to join me, and I wanted to share, if somebody is wanting to reach out to you, how can they reach you on social or your websites? And I know you shared your email, but please share it again. So if people want to be able to reach out, and I'll include it in the show notes as well as the link to be able to purchase the book.
The website is thegrassasalwaysgreenest.com. And so you can purchase our book there at the website and, see some background on us as well. And then the email, of course, is greengrass1111@yahoo.com. And our Facebook is, we had a long one. The Grass is Always Greenest Under Our Own Feet. Book fan club.
Book fans.
Book fans.
Yeah.
We put book fans.
Yeah.
The Grass is Always Greenest Under Our Own Feet. Book fans. There you go. And then what's Instagram?
At the Grass is Always Greenest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At that one's short, of course. And I just want to point out something really quick. In this one right here, this car, they were leaving they were leaving Starseed in the 5th dimension and going to Lost Valley through this tunnel here. And I don't know if you can see it, if it's backwards, but Archangel Michael is over their car as they're going through this tunnel. And I just thought that was really cool. I don't know if it shows it backwards or not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very beautiful.
And this is a selenite, where people, when they come in, they go in this selenite. What is this? A tower? What is this, Sarah?
It looks like a gazebo.
Yeah.
It's like a special,
that's made of selenite.
Yeah.
And that's a crystal, of course, if people don't know what selenite is, but yeah.
Yeah. A cleansing crystal that you don't put in water. That it's self-cleansing, so you never have to clear it. And then Archangel Michael, my gosh, how powerful the Archangel of protectiveness.
And the cacao Joanna is sticking out of the car in there as well. And also, as they're going into the tunnel, it says, "Warning, you are now leaving the 5th dimension of Starseed. Take precautions." That's the suspense. Buy the book. What's going to happen there?
I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody purchased this book like bulk rate and donated it to
schools
or after school schools or programs, or even more spiritual type of like the Center of Spiritual Living or unity type of organizations, so that it could be available for those who may not have the resources to be able to get it. That would just be a wonderful way for somebody also to contribute.
That would be awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, that would be really powerful. So if you were interested in doing something of that nature, please reach out to Phoenix and Sara so that they could help with something, of a bigger nature. If you have found it so powerful, I think it's, as we help each other and we all come together to raise the vibration, and how we can support each other with how words are so powerful. Thank you for being here today, Phoenix and Sara Ann. I really have enjoyed our conversation, and I can't wait to hear back what everybody's favorite parts are, right, of what we've talked about. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. We are so grateful.
Debbie.
Thank you, listeners and people that are seeing us.